nothing happens by itself.
Yeah,
you need to be out there doing it.
Yeah, sometimes being outside the box is just doing because most people don't do.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Where it's
like
just being proactive, and again, as you said, like that is crucial to being successful in the role as well.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of What My Best Friend Does, where we talk about what your best friends do so you don't have to. Today, I'm joined by my best friend, the Tech Salesman, Fraser. Fraser, how you doing?
Well, very well, thanks.
Good. Welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
Yes. We like to start with an icebreaker. What did you want to be growing up?
I don't know. I think I always had an interest in sport when I was younger.
Yeah.
Probably wanted to be a rugby player.
Okay.
Yeah. Didn't work out.
Okay, cool. Wanted to be a rugby player, didn't work out. You found your way into sales. Briefly talk me through your journey to this point.
Yeah, I think it was something that I was around when I was younger. So my parents owned their own business when I was younger, and well, they still do. And my dad was always the one who was out and meeting clients and getting stuff sold. So it was always something that I kind of looked up to. Different members of my family as well had done more tech sales type of stuff. So it was something that I always had an interest in. And I think I'd always liked the idea of like my parents having my own company, and I kind of saw the idea of being able to sell stuff as if you can't sell things, if you don't have any money coming in, then you don't have a business. So that was what I always wanted to focus on, and then it's just kind of gone from there.
Did you go to university?
I did, yeah.
What did you study?
I did a business degree at uni.
Okay, and do you feel like the degree you did has helped you in your sales career?
I think it has and it hasn't. I think it's helped me just to understand more about business, more about marketing and how things have kind of come together. But I wouldn't say that it's compulsory. I wouldn't say it's necessary in the role that I do. Maybe it's helped me to get more interviews or to get a job. But day to day, I wouldn't say it's had an impact on what I do.
Okay, cool. That brings us to today. What type of sales is it that you do?
Selling an e-commerce product is how I would describe it. So what we do is we kind of add on to a customer's e-commerce platform, like a popular one being Shopify, for example. And from there we can do different things like adding reviews to customers' websites, or adding loyalty programs, or allowing customers to engage with SMS marketing, for example. So we're kind of an e-commerce marketing platform.
And through all of the various sales roles that you've had, what would the spectrum of annual contract value be that you're selling? So that's ACV in the tech sales world. Yeah,
so it's varied in what I've done. It's been largely focused on what you described there. So a license of a product, like kind of software as a service. Even within the job that I've done now, it's changed, but generally you'd be looking at like 5 figures and above. Okay. So yeah.
Anything from 10,000 all the way up to 100,000, all the way up to 500,000.
That would be nice.
The reason I ask that is because I suppose, dependent on the size of the contract, does that depend on let's say, number one, the length of the sales cycle, and then number two, the strategies that you're employing in order to win the deals?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's natural that the more money someone is spending, the more cautious they're going to be about that investment. So there tends to be more people involved. There tends to be more of a stringent process to signing off on a project, the bigger the budget is. And that definitely has an impact on, as you mentioned, things like the cycle of starting a conversation to finishing one, of the types of things that you need to be speaking about and the types of people you need to be speaking to. So yeah, it definitely does have an impact.
Okay, and would you say selling So in our tech sales world, you've got SMB, which is small medium business. You've got mid market, and then you've got enterprise. Would you say it's a different skill set for selling SMB versus selling enterprise? And if the skill set is different, is it a harder skill? Like which skill set is harder, or is it just like they're just different?
I would say there are differences, definitely, but there are also like fundamentals that are consistent throughout. So generally, you need to understand in any sales cycle what the customer wants, why they want it, and how what you're offering can help them. So that's pretty consistent across whether you're selling software, whether you're selling a house, whether you're selling any number of products. And just similarly, the kind of the size and the scale of those products or the services is consistent. So understanding who the customer is, what they want, why they want it is crucial. As I say, it just becomes more complex the larger the money involved is, or the larger the project is. So there are more factors that come into play, more decision makers, more kind of processes that you need to have an understanding of.
I hear that. And, you mentioned the fact that your parents have owned a business and, your dad went out and sold. In terms of getting your fundamentals and becoming a salesman, what did that process look like?
So, yeah, I mean, it was something that I was encouraged to do when I was younger, like working in the summers with my parents' business, for example, like getting on the phone and trying to like drum up meetings and get things in the diary for him. Don't know how successful that was.
I mean, they're still in business now.
Yeah, they still are.
So you ain't done too badly.
So, yeah, I mean, there were little things like that, like nothing too serious. And then it's just something that I've developed really as part of like going through different roles and taking on different responsibility. Like you have to learn pretty quickly. Okay,
and I suppose for the listener, I think this is going to be quite an interesting episode because a lot of people, they
Are you
get
sure?
into give it time. I think a lot of people, they want to get into sales, they want to get into recruitment, and sometimes they might not necessarily know how to sell themselves in like that initial interview to get that first role. What would your advice be to them? What are the key things that they need to consider from the get-go?
Yeah, I think back to your initial question actually about university, and I think that helped me at the start of my career. Now that I think about it, like just particularly doing a business degree, it was the first job that I got was actually from a reference from a lecturer that I had.
Really?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I was actually handing in my dissertation literally in person in the whichever department that it was at the time, and bumped into one of the lecturers that I had, and he was just having a chat with me about what I wanted to do, what I had aspirations of, and to be honest, at the time I had no idea what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go down the kind of the graduate scheme. I didn't want to go and work for a big corporate company. I'd been quite interested, as I said before, in like the startup world and the kind of the idea of entrepreneurship. And so I was explaining all this to him, and he said, well, funny you should say that, because I've got a friend who's just started a business who's working in digital marketing, and he's looking for someone to come on board.
Bloody, that's lucky.
Yeah,
I'm taking my mind back to when I was at university. I don't even know my lecturer's name. There is no way I was ever going to be referred for a job.
Yeah.
So fair play. Fair play, friends.
Well, that's one thing, that there is definitely an element of luck, but that's like there's opportunity everywhere if you're like interested in it. So the more you can engage with people of influence or people who can like help you out, the more opportunities or the more luck that you might expect to have. Yeah,
I hear that. Sales books. I'm completely switching it up. No, because I remember when I started in my first role in a tech company, they gave everybody a spin selling book.
Yeah.
And another book I saw on everybody's desk was Start With Why. there's so many different books you can use to understand like the power of negotiating and selling. What books essentially have you read? Have you read any books? Do you find them beneficial?
I probably should read more than
Okay, fair.
than I do currently. I mean, it always is surprising that when you read a book like that you do come away with things that you can then implement, or you do feel like kind of a revitalization of your process or of things that you can focus on.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, there's so much out there. There's so many different things that it can be quite easy to get lost.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, the more information you're absorbing, the more kind of benefit that's going to have to you if you can start to piece together different experiences and different things in practice, as well as the theory of these types of books.
So you work in the tech industry. Can you talk me through a typical day or week and what that would look like?
Yeah. So one of the things is that most weeks look pretty different. That's one of the things that's quite interesting for me, is that you're always having conversations with different customers. They always have different requirements, different things that they're looking to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things that I definitely enjoy about the role. With that though, there's not just the bit that's talking to customers. That's the bit that I enjoy most.
Mm-hmm.
But there's more that goes around it. You've got to be ultimately getting those conversations happening. So how can you be getting in touch with people? How can you be speaking with teams internally who are ultimately trying to get conversations happening and getting like deals and projects in motion?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot around speaking internally with marketing. In my current role, we're very fortunate where we have a very good partnership kind of function exactly within the business, where they are speaking with agencies or with brands or with technology vendors who we can partner with and work kind of together on opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So working with them, syncing with particular individuals internally, and then ultimately moving deals forward. So there's a lot beyond just the conversations with those customers around getting answers to questions or getting different kind of things moving at different stages of the cycle.
I hear that. So just for the listener, you work with like mid-market and enterprise deals now, and previously you've worked with SMB deals. My question is, in like a typical week, what percentage of your time would you say is focused on like demoing customers, like the new platform, negotiating contracts, and has that differed as you've made the transition from SMB into mid-market and enterprise?
So it's hard to say a percentage. I mean, I'd always like the percentage to be as high as possible.
Yeah.
Generally, I'd say realistically, it's probably like 20 to 25% of your working day, maybe even less, is actually demoing or actually speaking with customers on the phone. That's maybe more so in the mid-market or the enterprise role that I'm doing now. Previously in SMB, by its nature, there are more businesses out there. There's more opportunity. So probably conversations are more frequent.
Can you share insight into your preferred sales approach in the tech industry, and how do you tailor your strategy to meet the unique challenges and opportunities presented by technological products?
That's a mouthful.
Yes, ChatGPT, cheers. Do you even remember the question? It was so bloody long.
that was a long one.
I'm going to summarize it.
Okay.
What's your preferred sales approach?
Yeah. I think approach, that there are different approaches, but like my thing is kind of sticking to a process. So it's quite easy to get pulled in different situations away from a process which is quite well established. I think for a startup business, it's a major priority to try and establish a clear process. Like, what's the best way to sell that particular product? Where at the current business, it's quite an established business, so you know what the process looks like. You know where you can be successful if you like stick to a proven way of moving a customer from an initial conversation to signing an agreement. So in terms of how to sell or how you can be successful or that type of thing, I would say sticking to a process. I'm waffling a lot of shit.
No, mate, it's fine. And a question I want to ask around, like, sticking to a process, knowing what to sell.
Yeah.
In like professional sports, they obviously have like game tape and film, and they'll watch stuff back and see where they can improve.
Yeah.
Are you listening back to conversations that you've had with customers to understand where you can improve?
Yeah. Yeah, so we use a platform called Gong internally, which is,
fantastic piece of kit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Something that everyone really likes in the sales team. And yeah, we have a bit of a culture of reviewing calls, which can be a bit daunting to someone who isn't used to it, or could be a bit daunting if like you were just cutting through someone.
Yeah.
But generally, there's quite. Like, I would encourage anyone to be open to having their conversations or their processes reviewed, because ultimately it can be beneficial for you, but it can also benefit other people within the team. It's something that we are big fans of.
It's so funny. Like, I watch myself back on Gong from time to time, and the two key takeaways: one, I hate my accent, but because of this podcast, I've kind of gotten used to it, so it's fine. And the other thing, which has been pointed out to me, I look at the camera weirdly. So sometimes I'm looking like this, like I'm not like sitting straight up. So just brace yourself before you like watch or listen to yourself back, because you're going to find some weird things. Well, I found some weird things about me, but
picking your nose and all sorts.
I won't go that far. In tech sales, understanding customer needs is crucial. How do you go about uncovering specific pain points?
With that, I think one of the key things to being successful in sales is your discovery is what it's called. So how can you understand more about the customer situation? How can you understand about why they've got in touch, why they're interested in having a conversation, what they're working on, what their priorities are, what their challenges are. With that, you can then uncover whether your solution is going to be a good fit for them. You can also uncover whether, even with that, if it could be a good fit for them, if there's an appetite for them to do it. So it's understanding, firstly, is there an opportunity there? But more importantly is understanding how likely that opportunity is of coming to anything. Ultimately, understanding that is where you're going to be successful as a salesperson, because you need to be able to forecast or actively highlight or show to the rest of the business what you can bring in. Yeah.
And speaking about forecasting and what you can bring in, I think for me, when I look at sales, I can imagine it being just so stressful, because every quarter you start at zero, right? And
why do you think I've got no hair?
Like, what is your approach to that, right? Apart from all your hair falling out.
Yeah, all right.
I'm joking, but like, how is it you plan out your quarters in advance to make sure that you give yourself the best chance of hitting target?
Yeah, it's something that you kind of develop over time. I would say that's something that really separates like a kind of a wise old head to someone who's starting out, is understanding how you can differentiate a good opportunity from a bad one, or understand how quickly something's going to move, or just be able to back the fact that that is something that's going to close. That's something that I think comes with time, but the better you can get at that, the less stressful the job can become. So the more peace of mind you have, or the more you can understand when and how opportunities are going to be able to close, the less stress you can put yourself under. And that's also a matter of process, because in an ideal world, you've got enough to get to that point.
Yeah.
But in reality, many times you don't have enough stuff that you're comfortable with in order to cover your quota, in order to get to the target that you have. So the better, again, that you can be at forecasting or understanding the likelihood, the more clinical you can be with understanding what the gap is to get to where you need to get.
Yeah. I hear that, and as you were speaking, what was going through my mind is people are unpredictable, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've had deals where you anticipate that it's going to come in before the end of the quarter, but for one reason or another, it slips, or something changes at the last minute.
Yeah.
My question to you is, how do you navigate those bad moments, right? When the plan deviates from its course.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, in an ideal world, you'd be able to have the coverage to if something bad happens, you've got something else that can take its place. Often that isn't the case.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's that idea of forecasting is how can you understand the likelihood of something happening?
Mm-hmm.
So if it's sitting with a single person and they're the only one who can have an impact on that happening or not, that's a risk. So can you forecast that in a different way? Ultimately, the more experience or the more understanding you have within a certain situation. Again, I'm waffling.
No, wait, go. It's good. This is you, man. No, this is good. By the way, if you think you're waffling, that means every person I've had on is waffling. No. You're doing the right thing, so please.
So yeah, generally, what was I saying? The ability to kind of avoid finding yourself in that situation, which is ultimately unavoidable. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be a circumstance where you're under pressure and there's something that needs to happen for you to hit your target. Mm-hmm. Generally, the best place to be in those, understanding what those situations are, and there's a kind of a sports phrase, which is controlling the controllables. Mm-hmm. You need to be able to be in a place where you can control what you can control and you can influence what you can influence. Mm-hmm. But then ultimately there are things that you're relying on other people as well.
Okay, so by the way, you're not waffling. That's made complete sense. Controlling the controllables, great clip.
Yeah.
In the inverse, let's say, for example, you're smashing quota, you're smashing target for the quarter, but you realise the quarter ahead, it's not looking so rosy. Is there a management process there to make sure you don't overperform in this quarter and you balance it out across the quarters? Am I stitching you up here? Just speak freely.
Yeah, I believe that the technical term for that is sandbagging.
Okay, sandbagging.
So if you think, right, I've got loads that I can close this quarter, but next quarter is looking a bit ropey, you can in theory, you could say, right, I know this deal could close here, but I would rather it close next quarter, so I'm just going to not maybe push as hard to get it done.
Is that advised, sandbagging?
It depends really on the commission structure or the compensation scheme that you have at your business. Mm-hmm. Generally, it's not advised because another thing is that time kills
all deals.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
It's a classic, but it's true.
Yeah.
And as to the point earlier as well, it's if you're in a situation where you're reliant on someone doing something, there are so many variables that could happen. The longer it takes for you to close the deal, the more could go wrong. Mm-hmm. A war could break out, or somebody could get seriously ill, or the business could be purchased, or there's so many things that could happen. So the longer you leave it before completing an agreement, the more risk you take. So it would never be advised, but ultimately it depends. If you're going to get paid more for doing it, you have to calculate that risk.
Mm-hmm. Trust is vital in any sales process.
Yeah.
How do you establish and build trust with potential clients, particularly when dealing with complex needs?
Yeah, I think trust is there's no difference in sales than there is to any walk of life.
Mm-hmm.
You can only build trust by being honest,
mm-hmm.
and by being a trustworthy person. So the more you get to know somebody, the more you can connect with somebody on a personal level as well as on a business level, with doing the right things with the project, following up in a timely manner, making sure that the answers are clear and concise and honest. Mm-hmm. The more they're going to then develop their trust for you. Yeah.
And on that note, in terms of building up that personal connection, How do you do that? Is it like engaging with them on LinkedIn? Is it taking them for lunch, taking them for dinner? What strategies do you employ?
Yeah, I mean, it's just generally with having a conversation. There are challenges where you need to be a challenger in some situations, so you can't just be the nice guy all the time. People will walk all over you.
Mm-hmm.
But you also need to be able to connect with someone. You need to understand what's in it for them. Like, why are they interested in this? What impact does it have on them? You need to have some empathy for their situation in order to understand, again, if there's a good fit and if there's an opportunity to work together.
I hear that. And I didn't talk about this before, but in terms of the actual sales process, right? From what I see within the business, there's or within businesses, there's a lot of different stakeholders in a sales deal. So you might have like a sales engineer, you might have somebody from customer success, you've got yourself, you've got your manager. How important is it to, number one, be knowledgeable about the product, and then number two, be that quarterback to make sure the relevant person is taking the relevant task and not lumping yourself with everything?
Yeah, I'd say ultimately the more knowledge and experience you have as an individual allows you to better understand where to plug different people in.
Mm-hmm.
So in a process or in a deal cycle, particularly in software, there are elements of technical capabilities, like how does this work both at a general level, but also then how does it fundamentally integrate or connect to the software, or the architecture tends to be the term that customer has. So there are considerations there. As I say, the more that you understand those things, the less you have to rely on other people, or the more you can encourage those other people who are experts to focus on what's relevant. Mm-hmm. Similarly, on the legal side, once you get to a point of negotiating legal terms, the more you can understand a contract, or the more you can understand the process, the better conversation you can have with your peers on the other side of the negotiation, and the better you can influence or kind of shape the conversation around maybe your legal person. Basically, the better understanding, the better knowledge you have of each of those components, mm-hmm. the more you're able to then leverage the experts at those different stages, I would say.
By the way, my mind works in ways where I just think about so many different things. And I'm switching gears again.
Okay.
As a salesperson, you have targets to hit, right? Because you have targets to hit, it might put you under pressure to sell deals quickly. And when you sell deals quickly, sometimes things might be missed, shall we say, or you might, say something to get a deal over the line. Have you ever, and once again, like you don't have, have you ever had a situation where there's been like a miscommunication with a potential prospect, and how have you rectified the situation, if so?
I mean, it does happen, whether you mean it to or not. There are always perceptions that customers have. There are always perceptions that you have of a certain situation. It's not always black and white. Mm-hmm. Spoken like a true salesman. No, sorry. Ultimately, it's always a balance. Yeah. Like if saying something or doing something, or like, if one detail means that you're going to get the wider deal done, is that beneficial to you as a company and the company that you're representing? Is it ultimately beneficial to the business that you're selling to as well? Mm-hmm. Like, if that point means that they aren't going to work on the project, that they aren't going to progress with it, is that beneficial to them? Is it beneficial to you? You need to understand the situation generally, and make a decision based on that. I would say. Okay, fair. Switching up again, how would you define rules of engagement, and has it ever impacted any deals that you've been involved in? What do you mean by rules of engagement? What is rules of engagement? So my understanding of rules of engagement is, based on like verticals, or,
bands, like in our company. So something might be SMB, something might be
Oh,
mid-market. It gets assigned to like a specific rep. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's always, so like with that is understanding there are different responsibilities within the business. So with the business that I work for currently, there's the SMB team, which you'd mentioned before, which is based on the order threshold. That's quite technical for people who aren't maybe in the industry, the order threshold of the business that we're selling to. So those order thresholds they're unknown from an external perspective. So generally we have to understand from the business themselves what their order threshold is before we can get a clear understanding of where the responsibility lies.
And who's going to sell it.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's a business decision that's been made on our side, which has benefits in many aspects in terms of how we put together commercial proposals, but there can be challenges with how internally those opportunities are routed or who ends up picking them up. Generally, there are situations where there are challenges with that, but for the most part, they're organised and sorted.
Okay, nice. You've obviously worked with a lot of different salespeople. From all of the salespeople that you've worked with, what is a typical skill that you've seen amongst the best performers, and what in the reverse maybe is something where some colleagues who haven't performed well, something you've noticed like a trend between those people?
It's interesting. I think for people who are successful is the ability to like qualify successfully. So the ability to understand what is a good opportunity and how you can focus your time and effort on that to make sure that it happens is definitely a big one. So that qualification is huge. I'd say on the other side, people who aren't necessarily successful are people who maybe spend their time on opportunities that aren't
going to bear any fruit.
Exactly. I'd say that's a key difference. I'd say also the ability of someone to be quite personable. So the ability for someone to get on with people, to like create those relationships is something that I've seen on both sides of the spectrum being successful and not. And generally some degree of understanding of the product or of what you're selling and how that impacts the customer. The better you are at determining that, the better you can be at the role.
Okay, great. So we've previously had another one of our colleagues on, Tom.
Okay.
And when he was on, we spoke about the fact that there's this perception of salespeople to be like braggadocious and money focused, like just get the bag, by any means necessary. Is that a fair interpretation? Do you find that the most successful salespeople are like very money motivated, or is that like a misconception?
I think money motivated is quite accurate. I think people then represent that in different ways. Ultimately, people get into a sales role for the most part due to the commercial benefit of it, but it does come with the stress and the pressure of having that target that you have to hit. So I think there's definitely an element of it, but it's hard to say.
No, by the way, it's a tough question. I just wanted to get your insight, because I think when I spoke with Tom was like, you definitely get into it for the money, but you stay because like either like you love the business or you love the platform. So I think getting into it, there's definitely like that money motivation, but actually staying in it and doing it year after year, I think there's a bit of transformation. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what he said. So it's good to hear from you, good to hear from him. Have you noticed any emerging trends in either the tech industry, the sales industry, and will they significantly influence sales strategies in the coming years?
I think there are a few where it's, well, a big one is not unknown, but now there's so much opportunity for the digitization of the sales process. So before, it was probably more commonplace to have to meet people, have to go and like spend time with people in person. Then generally that moved online with things like Zoom and elements like that. I'm noticing now that there's more of a return to that in-person element, whether it's running events, whether it's going to like go and meet people in person and spend the time to be on site and to actually show interest in understanding their business, understanding how it works. Generally, I'd say that's a trend that I'm noticing myself, is the willingness to go and actually meet people in person is being successful.
I hear that. Do you like going on site and seeing people, and do you think it works better than the digital Zoom meetings?
Yeah, I personally do. I quite like the element of travel, particularly if it's international. Like it's a bit more exciting going to like Stockholm or Madrid than it is going to, I don't know, Birmingham. No disrespect to the Brummies out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I do like it. I like the element of being out the office. I like the element of like different experiences and going to see people. That's one of the reasons that I'm like a fan of the role, is like the personal element of it and like connecting with people, understanding their situations and understanding how you can kind of add value to it. So yeah, the ability to do that in person is definitely something that I like, and I'm seeing a slight trend of that being more adopted. But it is still very much a hybrid of like the online experience as well.
Do you enjoy the role?
Yeah, definitely. It is something that I enjoy. Definitely there are pressures that come with it, and when it's not going your way, it can be very stressful. But the highs of it going well, the highs of doing a big deal, the highs of the monetary element that comes with the success as well is what keeps you going.
Okay. You touched upon the fact that there can be some stresses.
Yeah.
What would you say the most stressful aspect of being a salesperson is?
I think it's just the pressure to perform consistently. And as I say, when you are performing, it's not a consideration because you're happy with it. It's when it becomes more challenging. And at the moment, with the general economic climate, it is a lot more challenging for people. You have to grind out those results a bit more, and that can be stressful.
And yeah, like I suppose in a follow-up to that, you've mentioned the fact that the market is quite difficult at the moment. What is it that you're doing to help alleviate that stress? Maybe nothing. I don't know. Maybe I'm touching the nerve. I don't know.
Well, I think generally you've just got to be smarter. You've got to take more advantage of the opportunities that come your way. So you've got to really work harder for what you're getting. Like when it's a bull market and people are like out throwing cash about, always interested in how they can spend their money, then it is generally easier because there's more opportunity, there's more willingness to pay, there's less like scrutiny of maybe the return on investment that a customer is going to get. On the other side, you need to be more focused on what is that return on investment. How is a customer going to benefit to doing this and spending their money, which is limited on this project rather than on another one? How can you, really determine what those requirements are and kind of show that you can deliver on?
We spoke about the most stressful thing. What would you say is the most rewarding thing about being a salesperson?
Well, I think back to the point of the monetary side, like the upside of when things are going well and you're selling deals and you're earning the commission is definitely what I enjoy about it. Like I think to what we were discussing initially as well at the start of the call is, do you need to go to university? Do you not? Like you can be making good money as somebody who doesn't have a degree, or somebody who's not a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant or an engineer. You can be earning the same amount as somebody who's gone through those qualifications and who has like gone to the effort of getting to that level of qualification. by getting into a sales role.
Do you know that? Well, you won't know, but we we had a doctor on this podcast.
Yeah.
Shout out Dr. Jess. She did 11 years of study.
Yeah.
And her opening salary was £22,000
Yeah.
after 11 years and becoming a specialist doctor.
Yeah.
So to your point, you can definitely earn like a significant amount of money without accruing the debt that comes with every year worth of education.
Yeah, I agree. And it's ultimately, I mean, life's not all about money, and I think that's not enough for a doctor to be getting paid. But ultimately, the motivations are there to be helping people. Like, different people are motivated by different things in life, and thank God that we have like people who are motivated to help people, like doctors. And as I say, they should be getting paid more. But
hold tight the NHS. I support you. Fuck the prioritisation of the NHS. You pagan Tories. I don't even know. I just got into my political mode there. I don't even know where I'm going next. Okay. You've actually just touched upon the fact that you can earn a significant amount of money. I suppose whilst we're talking about it, are you able to share like a salary range of potentially what you can expect to earn in a sales job, comprised of both your base salary and then commission?
Yeah, I mean, it varies so much with different roles, different sectors, different products, different levels of experience, even different like businesses within the same sectors pay in different ways. But generally, within a sales role, there'll be some element of a core salary, and there'll be some element of an on-target earnings. Those on-target earnings are basically your target that you'll have. So say you have over a course of a year, or that will then be broken down into a month or a quarter, you've got a target of revenue that you need to hit, of which you'll get a percentage of that revenue. Ultimately, if you overperform, in most circumstances, that's then uncapped. So if you were to sell like millions of pounds worth of revenue, you could then get a certain percentage of that. So generally the upside in sales is pretty high, but that comes with the pressure of having to hit your target, which is not always easy.
Of course. We're not talking about you here. Do you know many other salespeople?
Yeah.
Do you know any of them that with their base and their commission earn above £100,000 per year?
Yeah.
Do you know any salespeople who, with their base and commission, earn above £150,000 per year?
Yeah.
Bloody hell. We go again. Do you know any salespeople who, with their base and their sales commission, earn more than £250,000 per year?
I do.
Bloody hell. Okay.
That's, I would say once you're getting to that, like, for the most part, you're then more experienced. Like, you've been doing it for a long time. You're probably focused at that stage much more on the enterprise side of things.
Okay.
Where you're really like working on strategic projects, generally much fewer over the course of a year. But yeah, there is certainly the opportunity to be earning that and even more.
Okay. I think the
not
listener...
me. That's the goal.
No. And that's why, like, I wanted to speak about other people, and even me personally. I've worked in multiple tech organizations, and I know people who earn north of that. It's bloody sickening. But I just wanted to be clear on that. Right, I need to.
But yeah, for everyone who earns that amount of money, there's probably 10 who have tried to and haven't been able to. Like it's easy to kind of glamorize a high salary and a high like earnings, but it's like anything in life, you don't just get it for free. Like you have to take on the stress and the pressure and the means of getting to that point.
Yeah, 100%.
Like nobody's going to give you £250,000 for the fun of it. You have to go out and earn it.
100%. And on that, so in terms of the different stakeholders that you work with, who would you say you're most involved with in your organisation?
Internally?
Yeah.
Ultimately, probably the one with the most involvement would be the sales manager.
Okay.
So the person who's like my direct report. No, I'm their direct
Yeah,
report.
yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So they're the person that I'd probably speak with most often, like daily conversations around what's happening, how we can help things, how we can help move things along. I would say also there's different involvement with our business in particular around the tech side. So understanding from a technical perspective how we can
Achieve the needs of a client.
And how we can be creative with the solution that we have to achieve the objectives that they have. I mentioned before as well, there's the partners team, which is quite specific to our business, but it's also quite common within a SaaS world where you have partners with different technologies or different agencies perhaps. So I spend a lot of time working with them. And generally as well, we have our sales development function. So I spend time as well working with them as to how we can actively be prospecting to different customers and how we can then like target individuals and individual companies as well to make sure that we're kind of getting the right conversations happening.
That makes sense. We actually work for a great company, and like the reason I'm saying that is because my next question is like, there are going to be times where you have like internal conflict. How do you navigate situations where you're not necessarily getting something from somebody internally? And it doesn't have to be this current role.
Yeah, I mean it's hard if you're not getting something from somebody. You've got to think, why aren't you? Like ultimately, there's a reason for anything that happens. Why is somebody treating you in that way? Why is somebody not responding? Why is somebody like doing any number of things? You've got to think, like, what is the reason for that happening? If there's a legitimate reason, how can you address that? If there's an illegitimate reason, how can you address that? It's like, yeah, why is somebody not speaking to you? Why?
Okay, fair. Basically, question it and try and resolve.
Yeah, exactly.
Deal with it head on.
Yeah.
Don't let it fester. Don't talk behind people's backs. That's what I'm hearing. No. That's what I'm hearing. I'm just trying to distill it for the listener.
Yeah.
During this conversation, we've spoken a lot about qualifying deals and making sure that you're working deals that are actually going to close. How do you prioritize your workload and those deals that you think, okay, this is going to come in?
Generally, there are like tick boxes, so you can say, like, am I speaking to the right person? Is there a good fit for the technology, the solution itself? Is there a clear timeline? Is there like budget associated to the project? Do I know the customer's process? Like, the more of these types of bits of information that you can tick off and you say, right, I have a clear understanding, the better. So that all comes down again to that element of discovery. Like, the better you can understand the situation, you can understand how you can affect it, but you can also understand how you can forecast it, or how you can anticipate that project actually happening. And there are elements of that, as I say, which are like, you can tick things off, but there are also elements that you have a feel like, am I getting on well with this person? Do I think that this person has a legitimate interest in this? Do I feel that they've got the buy-in of the wider business? Are they bringing the right people to the calls that we're having? Are they rescheduling the calls that we're having? Are they following up with things when they say they will follow up with them?
Yeah.
There are like loads of more subtle cues that allow you to put your trust in that person as well, that this has investment from them and that they're going to be like the idea of a champion to like get this done. The better relationship you have with that person, then that kind of starts to snowball.
Yeah.
And that's when you can start to feel confident that this is going to happen, or otherwise. And then you can move that aside and you can move on to something that you do think is going to happen.
Okay, understood. In terms of personal development and staying on top of sales strategies and methodologies, Do you have a lot of sales training? And yeah, what would your advice be to people looking for more sales training?
Yeah, so it's something that we do internally. I mentioned the platform Gong that we use, so the call recordings. We have sessions with the team internally where we'll do a discovery call review. So we'll pick a call at random from someone in the team, and we'll use a scorecard to measure how successful they were at that discovery. Did they get what they needed to get? Did they handle any objections? Did they open and close the call well? Did they establish a clear next step? The kind of the fundamentals around the success of a call allows you to understand firstly how other people are doing it, but also when it's your turn to be critiqued, you can then improve on your process, and you can understand how you can get better and how you can take better advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah, understood. Okay, I've heard that. I was going to ask about any sales frameworks that you might use. So are you familiar with Medic, and do you use that kind of a framework when you're going about securing a deal?
Yeah, so it's something that we generally use. So we're trying to implement it more and more within the process. That was kind of what I was alluding to as well with those tick boxes.
Yeah.
So how can you understand that you have metrics to analyze, or that you have somebody who's going to be an economic buyer for you, that you can kind of trust that there's budget, that they have the ability to unlock that budget? How can you understand the decision-making process? All of those things, once you have a legitimate understanding of them, you can then feel confident that firstly there's a project there, but then when, again, to the idea of forecasting, how likely that opportunity is to happen.
And I suppose to the listener, do you feel like when you have those boxes ticked and you follow that process to get that information, it makes the sale typically easier to close?
Yeah. So the better, again, back to the discovery, the better you understand the whole circumstance. So the need for the product is one thing. The project itself, you have to have a clear understanding of, but you also have to have a clear understanding of the process and the ability for that to happen. You
mentioned Gong. Are there any other key bits of software that all salespeople need to be using in their tech stack?
A few things. I mean, there's a CRM platform, but that's pretty boring.
Yeah.
You kind of need to be able to use that so you can document where and how conversations are happening, what the notes are on the previous conversation, what the next steps are, that type of thing. So it's boring but quite important. We've implemented a solution called Chili Piper as well, which can be a bit of a headache sometimes, but generally it's pretty good. So it's a solution that allows you to be more kind of advanced with your meeting booking. So we have it so it's connected to marketing now, so that a customer booking in just book something straight into your calendar. Okay. You can send through links that can include multiple people. You can do some quite cool stuff with it that just shortens the process of a back and forth over trying to schedule some time. It's just straight away booked in.
Okay. So we got Chili Piper, we got CRM platform, we got Gong.
Yeah.
They're the ones that you should be considering. Absolutely fine. Do you feel like you've got a good work-life balance?
Generally, I do, yeah. It's not always been the case, but in the role that I'm in currently, I think I've got a very good work-life balance.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And in terms of being productive, do you have any productivity hacks?
I'm not very good at being productive. No, I think addressing, having time to focus on different things. So designating time, I think it's so easy to get distracted at the moment. Even when you are working, it's easy to get somebody pings you on Slack and you're answering their question. And then you're like, oh, I need to update that thing in Salesforce, or I need to respond to that email. And it's so easy to get distracted with different things.
I'm nodding because that sounds like me.
Yeah. I was speaking to one of the girls in the office the other day, and she was saying the exact same thing. It's
Yeah.
like you're working the whole time, but you're just distracted with different things.
Yeah. I've got about 5 email tabs open at the moment because I start writing one email and now I'm like, oh damn, I need to get back to this person, and then you go onto Salesforce and then you open up a new one. I'm just like,
let alone when someone then starts chatting to you in the office, or you get a
Exactly.
text from someone, or like there's influences aside from that as well. So just being more strict with like trying to focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Generally designating time to respond to things as well. And one of the key things that I'm trying to prioritize as well is being more proactive with research for particular calls or particular meetings that you have. So how can you designate the time so that you're not going into something
Cold.
ill prepared?
Yeah.
Like you always do some preparation, but how can you take it that next step?
Yeah.
So how can you have different things prepared? You can have different like options for different eventualities that might happen, or you can be more in control of steering the conversation because you've prepared things ahead of time.
We've spoken about your productivity hacks. We've spoken about the fact that you enjoy work.
Yeah.
How do you actually unwind from work?
That's something I'm very good at.
Okay.
No, but I don't know, different ways. I've mentioned again at the start of the call, I always wanted to be a rugby player when I was young. I'm into sport generally, so I like playing golf, I like playing football. They definitely help. Try to go to the gym as well, although I'm probably looking a bit small now. Try to do that. All things that I like, generally like eating, whether it's making my own food and cooking, which I like, or going out for food. Big fan of that. So yeah, the unwinding bit's pretty easy.
It's all the other stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I've already asked you this, but I just want to be clear again. I think for anybody who is looking to get either their first job in sales or like progress and get a next job in sales, what would your advice be to them?
I think it's like looking for opportunities is a big one. So like, how can you find different opportunities? How can you like look at situations that might not be otherwise obvious? Like obviously there's a route of going down speaking to recruiters, there's a route of like just applying to things online, but how can you like go to meetups, or how can you like get yourself into circumstances where opportunities are going to present themselves to you? So there's that element of like making opportunities, but generally if you want to get into sales, being proactive is a key trait to have. So how can you be proactive in finding yourself that sales job? But I guarantee if you're a sales manager and somebody is proactively messaging you or proactively being creative with how they're trying to communicate to you, they're going to appreciate that 10 times more than they would be somebody who's just like applying through a recruiter and going through just the standard process.
Yeah. I think speaking to people on this podcast, I've started to understand that. And I think the reason why people appreciate that is because when you take that initiative and you show that proactivity, it mirrors how you're going to be in your day-to-day job.
Exactly right.
They don't want the cookie cutter. They want people who are thinking outside of the box to ensure that they're hitting their targets, etc., etc.
Yeah, exactly. And there's elements of thinking outside the box. I don't think you need to be particularly creative. You just need to be like
different.
Yeah. Well, you just need to like you need to make the call. You need to like send the message. Like if you don't do any of that, then you nothing happens by itself. You need to be out there doing it.
Yeah, sometimes being outside the box is just doing because most people don't do.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Where it's like just being proactive, and again, as you said, like that is crucial to the being successful in the role as well.
Yeah.
So whether maybe at an earlier stage being an SDR, the more proactive you can be with sending the emails, calling, connecting, like attending events, or like being out there and like trying to get stuff going. That's ultimately what success is going to be. So if you can demonstrate that in the process of applying for something, then that's like you're halfway there.
It's going to be a wonderful clip, that. No, Fraser, this has been such a wonderful conversation. Where does Fraser see himself in the next 5 to 10 years?
Good question. I don't really know. I think for me, again I mentioned before, a desire of mine has always been to have my own company. It kind of gets a bit more challenging the more you're used to having a salary and to working for a business. Like, it becomes a bit more challenging to step away from that and take the risk.
From the comforts, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's always something that I've romanticised and something that I would like to do. Whether or not it will happen, I think the opportunity needs to come about.
Do you know what you would do?
Well, that's the thing. I think I probably need to take a bit of my own advice and be a bit more proactive with like finding what I want to do. But yeah, I mean, that's something I would like. I mean, if I was still within the sales role, for me, I would like to be just working on bigger opportunities, working on more like larger opportunities, getting somewhere closer to that compensation package that we spoke about before.
Management?
So for me, it's not something that I'm like desperate to do. Okay. I mean, for a lot of people, it's something that is a natural progression from a sales role into a management role. But I've got my own problems. I'm not that great at managing other people's problems as well.
Yeah. And sometimes it is fine to be an individual contributor.
Yeah.
Like, you can be just as successful. You don't have to move into management, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah. And that, for me, I mean, I'm not ruling it out one day, but at the moment, I'm keen to keep doing my own thing and trying to develop.
Fraser, thanks, bro. We're not done. We still got the quickfire round, but I feel like you've given me a great insight into the life of a tech salesman, and more importantly, the listener.
Hopefully
but
so.
We've got some questions now to get to know you a little better.
Okay.
Work from home or work from the office?
Cop out, hybrid. Okay. I like both.
Okay, fair. Yeah. Money or happiness?
Well, happiness, but the two things are intertwined, I would say.
Cop out, both. No, I'm joking. Favourite day of the week?
Fridays are pretty good.
Yeah, they are. Time in a group or time alone?
In a group, I would say, if I had to pick one.
Would you rather travel to the past or future?
Probably the past.
Oh, okay. Any time period in particular?
29 years ago.
Okay.
Invest in Tesla.
Yeah.
Or Apple or Facebook, yeah.
Yeah. Give us some Euro Millions numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
Favourite book?
Probably Shoe Dog.
Phil Knight. Phil Knight. We've had that before. Yeah. So hold tight, Phil Knight.
It's a good book. I'm not a big reader, but there's one that I couldn't put down when I was reading it. Yeah. It's just so interesting.
It is an amazing book. Night out or night in?
Night out, probably.
Fair. Who has it easier, men or women?
Men. Why not? I'll play it.
Are you listening to any good podcasts at the moment?
Not really, apart from what my best friend does.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, that's a great answer.
Yeah.
All right, Fraser, that was it. We do have a closing tradition on this podcast.
Yeah.
And it's just a simple question. Knowing what you know now, and with everything that you've done, what advice would you give your younger self, your 16-year-old self, and would you be doing the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too many complaints. So, I mean, looking back, I'm not sure that I would change anything apart from maybe investing in
some different stocks.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, generally looking back, I would say just stick at it because, I mean, it could be a lot worse.
Okay.
Like, you've got to enjoy yourself. Don't get too worried about the low points because the high times will come again.
Mm-hmm. And would you be doing the same thing, sales? I
mean, apart from doing my own thing and maybe starting my own business, I think being in sales is probably what I would focus on because I do enjoy it. Like the social side of it, the making relationships and connecting with people, the working on particular business problems and trying to address those challenges, and then as we've discussed as well, the compensation. Like there are real like large elements of it that I do enjoy, and for me they outweigh the negative sides of it.
The difficult times.
Yeah.
I hear it. Fraser, thank you, bro. We made it.
Thank you, yeah. Made it.
This has been such a pleasure. For anybody that might want to, reach out to you, is there any socials you want to share? You don't have to.
Yeah, I'm not massive on the socials to be fair, but I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah. So yeah. hit me up.
Ask me. And if he wants it, I'll give it to you. Guys, thank you so much. If you've gotten to this point in the show, you know what you got to do. You got to like, you got to share, you got to comment, you got to subscribe, you got to do all those things, guys. But thanks once again. This has been another episode of What My Best Friend Does. If you didn't know, now you know. Over and out.